Brandon Tate and his wife Danielle moved to Maplewood Haven, looking for a fresh start, a quiet, suburban life wrapped in clean sidewalks and friendly waves. Brandon worked from home as a cybersecurity consultant, a job that allowed him to sink into lines of code while sipping coffee on the back porch. Danielle's work, however, was much less conventional. While her military records listed her as a logistics specialist with the U.S. Army, the truth was far more complex. She was an active-duty Delta Force operative, highly trained, rarely seen, and never advertised. Only a handful of people in the world knew the full extent of her capabilities, and none of them lived in Maplewood Haven. Their home was a tidy one-story on Roseleaf Lane, with a trim lawn and a white mailbox that gleamed in the sun. To outsiders, they looked like any other couple starting their quiet chapter in life. Maplewood Haven certainly sold that image well. The streets were lined with old-growth oaks, kids rode scooters without fear, and the HOA newsletter was filled with cheerful fonts, seasonal recipes, and overly enthusiastic reminders about bin placement. On weekends, neighbors gathered for cookouts, and American flags fluttered gently on porches. But like many neatly kept neighborhoods, Maplewood Haven hid its own storms behind white fences and manicured hedges. And at the eye of that storm was one woman, Marjorie Halston. Marjorie, though not the HOA president, was unquestionably the most vocal, feared, and fastidious figure in the community. Mid-50s, always seen in pastel cardigans and khaki slacks, she wore her power like a badge, quite literally, some would say. She walked the neighborhood with a clipboard in hand and an endless supply of passive-aggressive energy. People referred to her quietly, calling her the Clipboard Queen or simply Karen, behind her back a fitting nickname given her relentless policing of community standards. Brandon and Danielle had their first brush with Marjorie one afternoon in May. They were walking past a newly built house when they saw her berating a young mother whose toddler had left a tricycle on the grass. "This is a safety hazard," Marjorie was saying, tapping her clipboard like it was a gavel. "One fall, and you'll be seeing lawsuits flying." Brandon raised an eyebrow. Danielle said nothing, just studied the woman with that calm, composed expression she wore even during military briefings. They kept walking, but that moment was just a whisper of the storm to come. A week later, a thick newsletter landed in their mailbox. Inside were reminders about upcoming events, holiday decor regulations, paint color codes, and an oddly specific list of hedge height standards. Danielle read it aloud, smirking. 3 to 4.5 feet. Not 3, not 5, 4.5. Someone's living her best bureaucratic life. Brandon chuckled. If it keeps the lawns tidy, fine. As long as no one comes knocking about our garden gnome. They underestimated Marjorie's appetite for conflict. It began innocently enough. One crisp morning, Brandon was trimming the hedges while Danielle went for a jog. Their neighbor, Mrs. Langley, was watering her petunias when Marjorie approached, waving her clipboard like a warning flare. "Your hedges are about 1 inch too tall," she said, without so much as a hello. Brandon paused, trimmer still buzzing in his hand. Pretty sure the guidelines say neatly trimmed, not laser-aligned with a ruler. "They've been updated," Marjorie snapped, producing a fresh sheet of regulations that she had seemingly typed up herself. Page 4, subsection B. Hedge height uniformity is crucial to neighborhood harmony. Brandon sighed, nodded, and went back to trimming. Mrs. Langley gave him a sympathetic smile. "Don't let her bother you. She once measured my mailbox with a tape measure. Claimed the paint was too pearlescent." Danielle returned home not long after and laughed when Brandon recounted the encounter. "If her biggest threat is foliage discrepancies, I think we're okay." But Marjorie wasn't done. Over the next month, the tales came in like whispers. She told the Petersons their Halloween wreath was seasonally disruptive. She reported a teenager for playing acoustic guitar in his garage during a Saturday afternoon. She even tried to ban basketball hoops. When Brandon and Danielle received a formal warning over a small lion statue in their garden, a gift from Danielle's late grandmother, it became personal. Brandon attended the next HOA meeting, hoping to appeal to reason. The actual HOA president, a kindly man named Howard Graham, seemed baffled when Brandon brought up the statue. "We've never banned garden ornaments," Howard said, flipping through the official HOA binder. "We regulate fence height and lawn maintenance, not the stone lions." Marjorie interjected. "Some items are grandfathered in. Others are not. We must uphold visual cohesion." It was the first time Brandon realized Marjorie operated by her own rulebook, one only she seemed to possess, complete with self-invented clauses and endless fine print. After the meeting, Howard pulled Brandon aside and said quietly, "She's relentless. Half the board just lets her steamroll to avoid the hassle." At home, Danielle shrugged. "I've dealt with warlords who had less control issues." But things shifted when Marjorie's curiosity about Danielle began to rise. Danielle had always been careful. She said little about her job, told neighbors she handled Army logistics and training coordination. But Marjorie noticed her early morning departures, her muscular build, her rigid posture. She started asking questions. What did Danielle really do? Was she part of a secret unit? Was their home a security risk? Danielle kept her answers vague. But soon, rumors trickled through the neighborhood theories that Danielle was a black ops agent or part of a military experiment. Gossip, fueled by Marjorie's suspicion, ran wild. Then came an email. Subject line, Neighborhood Watch 2.0 HOA Safety Patrol. Marjorie announced the formation of a volunteer safety team. It wasn't affiliated with law enforcement, but would help enforce HOA rules and investigate suspicious behavior. She dubbed them the HOA police. Most residents rolled their eyes, but a few, the bored, the bitter, the authority-hungry, signed up. Marjorie recruited Travis, a retired mall cop, Derek, a middle manager with a Napoleon complex, Leanne, a true crime podcast addict, and finally, Kyle, a failed private security guard with an alarming fondness for tactical gear. They began patrols, walking the streets in matching polo shirts with HOA police stitched across the chest. Brandon caught one of them measuring the spacing between their garden stones. Danielle stayed calm at first. Then, one evening, Derek and Travis knocked on their door, claiming they needed to inspect the garage for hazardous materials. "You're not coming inside," Brandon said, blocking the door. "We have HOA authority," Derek insisted. Danielle appeared behind him. "This is private property. You're not law enforcement. Show me a warrant or get off our porch." The men hesitated. Her tone, her presence, the intensity in her eyes, it was enough. They left. That night, an anonymous note appeared in their mailbox. "You're being watched. Comply with the HOA police or face the consequences." Danielle sealed the note in a plastic bag and handed it to the police the next morning. But without proof, all they could do was patrol more often. Meanwhile, Marjorie escalated. She posted pictures of the Tates' backyard online, circled supposed fortifications like Brandon's secured home office and their locked tool shed. "Where are they hiding?" she wrote. Comments poured in. Some neighbors defended the Tates. Others began to wonder. Danielle's instincts flared. She increased their home surveillance. Brandon checked for bugs. They slept lightly, weapons secured but ready. What came next wasn't just harassment, it was nearly deadly. One sunny Saturday, as Brandon grilled burgers in the backyard, Danielle answered a knock at the door. Marjorie stood there with 4 members of her HOA police behind her. Kyle had a visible bulge under his jacket, a concealed weapon. "We're conducting a safety inspection," Marjorie declared. Danielle kept her voice level. "This is illegal. You have no authority here." Kyle stepped forward, waving a fake document signed by Marjorie herself. "This is not a warrant," Danielle said. "Leave." But Kyle pulled his weapon. Danielle called for Brandon. He emerged, froze at the sight of the gun. "We're calling the police," he said. Kyle aimed. "No, you're not." In a blur, Danielle moved. Her hand struck his wrist, twisted, disarmed, disassembled, and kicked the weapon behind her. Kyle hit the ground hard. She pinned him, knee on chest. "Call 911, she ordered Brandon. Marjorie screamed. The others backed away. "This is self-defense," Danielle said. "You brought an armed man to our porch." Police arrived within minutes. Witnesses spoke. Kyle was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon. Marjorie was charged with conspiracy, trespassing, impersonating law enforcement, and embezzling HOA funds to print badges and documents. The news exploded. Maplewood Haven's HOA police had turned vigilante nearly fatally. Marjorie's empire crumbled. Her group turned on her, claiming they were misled. She was sentenced to several years in prison. Kyle, Travis, Derek, and Leanne faced probation or minor jail time. Danielle never bragged, never explained who she really was. But when pressed by media, her refusal to comment only confirmed people's suspicions. She was something special. The neighborhood healed slowly. The official HOA board instituted new rules. Howard Graham personally thanked the Tates. At a small park gathering, he announced, "Danielle and Brandon showed the courage and restraint that kept this neighborhood from tragedy." People planted flowers again. Garden gnomes returned. Nobody complained about hedge heights. And whenever someone joked about rules going too far, they'd laugh and say, "Let's not call the HOA police." Danielle and Brandon smiled at that. Peace had returned hard-earned, but real. And if another Marjorie ever rose again, Maplewood Haven would know what to do.